Hello and welcome everyone to our next episode of Minerva PLM TV. I'm Jennifer Moore, your host, and I have with me today another very special guest, Jos Voskuil of TacIT, and probably most well known for his blog, The Virtual Dutchman. Jos, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, it's a pleasure to join you in this series that has been so far very informative. So really my style of talking about PLM. So thanks for inviting me.
Excellent, my pleasure. So of course, I know that you blog about everything from the nuts and bolts of PLM to digital transformation and of course, sustainable product development and so much more. But for those that aren't necessarily quite as familiar with your work, can you share a little bit more with us about your background and how you got started in PLM, as well as what you're doing now?
Right. Yeah, so the diversity comes, I think, also from my background. I started as a teacher in physics and mathematics, and that is something that I think still benefit a lot from explaining things to people that are not well informed and yet still need to have abstract concepts, especially in physics. From there, I started to work for a big CAD distributor and also reseller. And soon CAD also became related to data management. So that's where I got my involvement in the management of CAD data, less in the design data. And at that time, I met the founders of SmartTeam, and we were implementing SmartTeam in the Netherlands. But then I started my own company, TacIT, with the aim to do knowledge management. And TacIT comes from the tacit knowledge, the knowledge the expert has. But also there is tactical and IT in the name, so I can go all the directions. From there, initially I wanted to do knowledge management, but due to my relations with SmartTeam, I started assisting them implementing projects in Europe, and this became again a full-time job. So I started working for SmartTeam as a contractor for the next almost 8-9 years with them. And the beauty of being a contractor is that I had various roles. I was responsible for, in the beginning, template development, so customizations on top of SmartTeam. And then when IBM started to sell SmartTeam, my job was to train IBM worldwide. And more I became a mediator in PLM implementations related to SmartTeam. And that's, I think, that's where my life completely changed. I was at that time the Flying Dutchman, and that was the source of my my blog name at the end. And I was flying all around the world, listening to cases, and often discovering that the issue was not at all technical. It was a matter of wrong expectations or wrong methodology. And since, especially in the area of SmartTeam with a toolkit, it could go any direction. The other thing was, what I realized is every time when I came back, nobody was interested in to learn from that, because problem was solved, and so up to the next.
Right.
So the capitalization of all those experiences, I would say, never happened. And that was the reason why in 2008, I started my blog talking about what I experienced, mainly in the mid-market. That was my main customer base. And there is a big need for the mid-market to be educated. So initially I thought I'm going to educate, but more and more when writing, and also since 2011, presenting at PLM conferences, I realized it's not only methodology, it's people, it's the mindset, and I also got involved in bigger projects. And that's where all the diversity came from. And in particular, in the past 4 or 5 years, I saw the challenge that we have in the world of PLM to move towards a real digital future. So digital transformation became something that I was investigating and discussing a lot for companies. And that's where my current theories come from, and they are especially relevant also for big enterprises. So at the moment, I'm coaching vendors, implementers, companies in understanding where they are now and where to go next. And in particular, I focus on how can you connect to the management, because that's where at the end the action has to come.
Right. Absolutely. And your teaching background definitely shows in your blog. I love the way you break down concepts and really help people understand and come together on the different topics and move forward. And of course, we share Smart Team in our background. That was my first PLM.
Right.
And of course, from your blogs and whatnot, I do understand that you really look at digitalization as different thinking and not necessarily as an evolution. And I like that viewpoint. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that and how it relates to current product lifecycle management landscape?
Yeah, exactly. So I think as human beings, we only like evolution. And I remember the episode with Martin Eigner. Also, when you mention the word revolution, everyone starts to shake. But yeah, what I see happening in PLM is that we need, for a company, a kind of evolution process, but we need to break with the past in a smooth way. And I don't know if you have the slide from Mark in front of you.
I do, actually.
Okay, because if you look at this fantastic slide from Mark Halpern in 2015, we discussed this theme in the PDT conference when there was the first notion of PDM platforms. So we were moving from PLM to PLM platforms. And what you see on this slide is in a way a nice evolutionary path going from different stages, more maturity. And the most important that I like on this slide is that Mark uses the technology, how would you call it, framing. He says, what we do currently, it's a coordinated way of working. Mm-hmm. And if we want to go to digital, it's a connected way of working. And I zoomed in on those two topics a lot to look at what does it mean to be coordinated and what does it mean to be connected. Mm-hmm. And you find a lot of background on that in my blog, but to say it in a short way, if you work coordinated, then you work along along a process, and at a certain moment in time, you have to deliver information to the rest of the organization.
Right.
And in a coordinated manner, the coordination is timing and the type of information, often written in documents, or it can be CAD designs, etc. And this is the way we work, and this is the way currently we keep on working. Mm-hmm. Where in the connected manner, the information is connected to each other, and people are continuously contributing to the amount of information of the product. And a lot because it's now model-based. It's not based on documents, but you add data sets. Martin calls it partly SysML.
Yes.
You define systems. And I go further in the fact that it also needs to be digital. Because at the end, and that's one of my favorite one-liners, the digital twin doesn't run on documents. If you want to achieve a digital twin really across the enterprise, you need to have connected data. And that means somewhere we have to switch from saying this coordinated approach is no longer valid, because otherwise we will never have this end-to-end data connectivity.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that's I would say the main theme behind digital transformation for me with PLM. But since there is in PLM legacy, that's why we cannot throw away the past and start from scratch. And that's different, I would say, from all the other digital transformations in an organization, where they can just say, let's install a new environment and do a new ERP in a new way or something. Here we have legacy that needs to maintain maybe 15, 20, 30 years or 75 years if you're an airplane.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly correct. Yeah. And, you know, the questions that I've seen you get from time to time about, you know, what's preventing people from moving forward with the digital transformation, that recurrent theme of having an electronic file is not a digital transformation. I think we're still, you know, getting people to accept that and move beyond that. So what do you think has to happen for a company to move closer to orchestrating a connected environment, or even implementing a full digital transformation?
So we have to reach a stage that we really start learning in working in a connected environment. The examples you currently see on what we call digital twin or augmented reality are again new silos created at the operation side, not connected to the old PLM which is all document or even drawing driven. So to make this transition, you have to learn, and learning is like all human beings. You have to start small. So select a project or a theme. New people, that's crucial. Don't mix people working in different projects, but work with a new team, multidisciplinary, and learn and grow. And the whole idea is that your old business will probably slowly decline if you don't change. But your new business, the more you learn and the faster you grow. And as an organization, you will be in a hybrid mode. But as people, you will work in the only mode, in one mode or the other mode. But to implement this concept, and some companies start to grasp this, you need at C-level a vision that people say, yes, we are going to dedicate a new team that is allowed to learn on small scale and can grow. Because everyone at the top wants simplicity, one environment, one PLM, one approach. Yeah? And that's the big, I would say, blocking on real digital transformation for PLM for me.
So you said two things there that I picked up on, that you have a hybrid environment and that you're working towards one environment. When you say hybrid, are you leaning to the idea of legacy stays over here and the new vision comes over to the more connected way, or can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So we are often thinking that we need only one system. But at the end, for me, PLM is not a system. It's an infrastructure. It's a collection of best practices. And what you see in the traditional PLM system, it is designed for the coordinated approach. We store documents related to items, and in this way, we create a system of record, I would call it. And now, if you start in your new environment, it must be a new technology. It must be a new ways of working, because you need to bring the data from the disciplines in a connected manner together, not as documents, because then you're playing the same game again. And this environment, of course, will also need part information, information from the old legacy system, or let's say the main infrastructure, because that's where the company definitions are. But at the end, also this new system will generate reports or bill of materials that again run in the old mode. So there will be interaction between the old mode and the new mode. And the more you can implement in your new mode, the less you're dependent on your past. And if you are in an industry with fast moving products, I would say the old legacy is, I would say, more fast going away, for example, in high tech, than if you are in classical industrial equipment environments. And even in some cases, I've seen vendors implementing both in the same platform. So you have one PLM vendor, and that implements those two processes, but completely different, using different methodology.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And I think the variety of companies that you work with really shows there, because getting them to continue this process and have that hybrid mode and keep working towards that future vision of a more connected reality is just amazing. So really, we both agree that people, though, are at the heart of this process. Exactly. And no matter what technology you have, your people need to be enabled and inspired and encouraged. So how do you keep people going with that momentum to continue to strive towards this vision when they have maybe this hybrid environment and some of it's a little intangible as they work?
So it might sound difficult, but at the end, as a company, you want to develop fantastic products. And I, as a consumer, I want to have products that have been designed to give me a pleasure, or now what is even more important, that they're also sustainable. So I think that the challenge lies still in how do I create products that match very well the market and my customers. And in that spirit, you are looking at, and especially in companies, how can I connect better to the market? How do I know what is happening with my products in the field? Or what do I know what my customers want? And that means you have to rethink the way the organization is structured, because we are structured in silos from concept to delivery, and we have to think in the flow around what is happening in the market. And then automatically you say, okay, but our current infrastructure is not suitable for that. We need something new, maybe a platform where we can share product information.
Right.
And that's somehow where PLM comes in, without mentioning the word. It's really, it's driven by the new ways of working, by connecting to the outside world, that automatically will create the need for a PLM-like infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people talk about, should we change the definition? The good thing with PLM is, when we talk about PLM, everyone knows somehow the scope.
Yes.
Because the definition is wide. So coming back on what makes me exciting in PLM, at the end is we want to have the best products with the minimum waste, now the more sustainable products that are really successful in the market. And to be that, we have to be competitive. If you have no competition, then you end up with very inefficient companies creating lousy products, but nobody else can choose.
Right. That's a really good point, because competition absolutely does spur continuous improvement. Yeah, I love that angle. So what's your best piece of advice for people that are taking on the challenge of changing their businesses with the aid of technology, like PLM?
So in theory, you can say people don't want to change. So when do people want to change? They want to change if they see something better.
Okay.
And there is a big difference between at which level of the organization you are talking. Because if you are in a department, you want to have a smoother execution.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are on a higher level, then you look more at the horizontal activities in the organization, and then you want to have a smoother flow or a different flow. And
Mm-hmm.
At the end, if you want to have a change in your company, you have to have this on the top level of the organization. So the best chances for change is when your company is really suffering from something that is coming, that they are aware that competition is getting ahead of them, because otherwise you have this boiling frog syndrome that you say, oh, it's getting worse, but not so bad. Let's keep on doing. And PLM is a serious matter. I mean, when I meet with companies and discuss about PLM, I don't say it's going to be something cheap.
No.
And by the way, coming back to Martin's statement, in PLM, what we call expensive is not expensive in the ERP world.
That's very true.
It's related to financial numbers. And for PLM, those financial numbers, they are indirect. How innovative you are doesn't come from your ERP. So that's where the motivation comes to support your engineers with the best environment.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge I see with the engineers is that they think about usability, and that this is the way they are trained. I have to be fast to deliver this amount of information, and then somebody else will pick it up. Remember the coordinated manner.
Yes.
So that's why the beauty of this kind of change, you see it sometimes in startups, because they are not yet in rigid departments.
No 75 years of legacy.
So to come back on how to motivate, if you have no vision or no need, then the chances are just that you are pleasing some people with some new technology or some new functions or features.
Mm-hmm.
So it really needs to come from the business, and this needs to be made clear why we do it. Explaining the why is something that we often also forget. We're going to say we're going to do a business transformation, and this is what we're going to do, new departments, etc.
Yes.
Why and how are we going to make it happen, and why you should be involved? Those things are always necessary.
Yeah, without a strong enough why, then it can just look like busy work. So that's great. Final question for you today, kind of in two parts. One is that you take a very common sense approach to guiding businesses forward with making a change to their environment. What would you say, or what are your final thoughts on helping a company move forward. Any last bits of advice that you'd like to share?
Yeah. Okay. So I think if you're now at this moment implement PLM, you have a big opportunity to do it good. I mean, we are at the moment of digital transformation. We know at least the future will be very digital in the upcoming 10 years.
Yes.
So the first thing you have to ask yourself is, am I implementing the past or am I implementing the future?
That's good.
And most companies will say we implement the future. And based on that, you have to take your consequences. You have to become digital. You have to learn digital and behave digital. And that's my biggest point for everyone. If you start, are you implementing the past or are you implementing the future? Because if you do it, it's for the next 5 to 10 years. And that's a typical step life cycle in PLM. And I don't believe in fast implementation tools for 2 weeks and then the company has changed. At the end, the people are still slow and moving and adapting.
Yeah, that's like a vacation. 2 weeks.
Yeah. I remember a session with Oleg where he says the get PLM button. Yeah,
the easy
and then
button.
the problem is solved. Yeah. No, organizations are always the slow part of a PLM implementation. And there needs to be excitement. So not that we are going to implement the future with a sad face, but we say we're going to implement the future.
Yes, I love that. That's great. So key takeaways I heard there are: ask yourself the common sense question. Are you implementing the past? Or are you implementing the future? Remember to inspire your people about why this matters. And then just keep going. Yeah,
I mean, it's a journey, and the journey can be pleasant, even if because maybe there is a last remark. In the past, people thought that PLM was an implementation.
Right.
Because you install a system, and once the system installed, then everyone said, aren't we ready yet? We bought the software 3 years ago, and you're still doing, PLM is a journey. I mean,
iterative and continuous improvement. That's absolute truth. So
exactly.
Thank you so much, Jos, for taking the time to do this with me today. It's been a pleasure having you. I hope we get the chance to spend some time again in the future.
Okay, looking forward, and it was a pleasure to share the thoughts with you.
Okay. And to all of our users, thank you so much for joining us. Have a question that you want answered, drop your comments below or send me an email at jmo@minerva-plm.com. Like this episode, remember to hit the like and subscribe button so you'll never miss another session. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a great day.